Hey everyone, it's Taehyung. Before I start, I want to ask something. Wherever you are in the world right now, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word love? For me, it used to be something I couldn't explain. I thought love was this huge dramatic thing that would shake my whole world, like in movies or old songs. But as I got older, I realized love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it walks quietly beside you, waiting for you to notice. And before anyone jumps into conclusions, no, this isn't an announcement or some confession that will break the internet. I'm not here to shock anyone. I just want to share something real. Because lately, I've been thinking a lot about what kind of person I've become and the kind of person I want to be for someone else. When I said I've already chosen the woman I'll marry, I didn't mean a name. It wasn't about a specific face or a rumor you've read online. What I meant was, I've chosen what kind of love I want to live with. I've chosen the kind of peace, the kind of laughter, the kind of connection that feels like home. You see, being an idol makes it easy to confuse attention with affection. There are so many eyes watching, so many hearts giving you warmth, but sometimes that warmth doesn't reach you. You perform, you smile, you speak your lines, but when the lights go off, the silence becomes the loudest sound in the room. That's when I realized I want someone who loves me in that silence too. There was a time when I thought being loved meant being perfect. I worked harder, smiled brighter, tried to be someone worthy of admiration. But over time, I learned that love isn't about perfection. Love is about honesty, the kind that doesn't need to be polished. I want a love that looks at me, not my image. A love that sees Kim Taehyung, not just V from BTS. One night, I was in my studio alone, writing. It was raining outside, the kind of soft rain that makes you want to stay still. I remember staring at my reflection in the glass, and I asked myself, if one day everything disappeared, the stage, the lights, the applause, who would still stay? The answer wasn't clear, but I knew this. I want to be with someone who doesn't need to love the spotlight to love me. I've seen so many kinds of love around me through the people I care about. Yoon Gi-hyun always says that love should never make you lose yourself. He once told me, Tai, the right person won't demand you to shrink so they can shine brighter. And Nam Jun-hyung, he sees love like art. He believes every relationship paints a different canvas, and you get to choose what colors you allow in your life. That stuck with me. Jin Hyung once told me that patience is the most underrated kind of love. Don't chase love, let it grow, he said, while cooking late at night. I laughed at the time, but now I understand he was right. Ho Bi-hyung reminds me every day that love can be fun, that laughter can heal even the deepest cracks in your heart. Jimin, he shows love by being gentle. He listens more than he speaks. And Jungkook, he's the most honest person I know. He doesn't fake affection, and that's something rare. All of them showed me different shades of love, and maybe that's why I've already chosen. Because I've seen enough to know what I want to give and what I can't compromise anymore. Army, I've met millions of people through our journey. You've seen me laugh, cry, grow, fall apart, and stand up again. And I think that's why I can say this sincerely. I've already chosen the kind of love I'll spend my life protecting. It's the kind that doesn't need to be announced. It's not a trending topic. It's not about public approval or perfect timing. It's about two souls who understand each other when the world gets too loud. There are moments when I imagine her, not her face, but her energy. She's calm, she's grounded, she doesn't need me to perform to be worthy of her attention. She loves art, maybe music, maybe nature. She's someone who understands silence, someone who feels like a melody I've known forever but never wrote down. Sometimes I wonder if she's already somewhere out there watching or maybe not even aware, but I know that when we meet, it won't be a grand moment. It'll just feel right. Because that's what real love does. It doesn't shout, it whispers, "You're home." There were years when I thought I didn't deserve that kind of peace. Fame can make you doubt your worth. You start thinking, would anyone love me if I wasn't who I am on stage? But the truth is, being loved doesn't depend on your title. It depends on your truth. And my truth is, I'm a man who still believes in love. Not the perfect kind, but the kind that stays. So, when I say I've already chosen the woman I'll marry, I mean this. I've chosen to wait for someone who matches my peace, not my fame. I've chosen to protect my heart, not hide it. I've chosen to love gently, honestly, and with intention. I think real love isn't found, it's recognized. And when it happens, you just know. Like a song you've never heard before, but somehow you can already sing along. There is something strange about love, how it can make you dream of forever and yet make you fear it at the same time. For me, that fear didn't come from not knowing love. It came from imagining what it would be like to lose it. I've seen what happens when people give their hearts away too easily. They end up forgetting themselves. They lose their laughter, their curiosity, their sense of peace. And I promised myself I would never let love erase who I am. But that's the irony, isn't it? The more you protect your heart, the lonelier it becomes. There were nights when I'd sit by my window in silence, looking at the city lights. From afar, they look beautiful, warm, glowing, almost alive. But when you get closer, you realize how cold and distant they really are. That's what love felt like for a long time. Bright, but unreachable. I wanted to reach for it, but I was afraid that if I did, it would vanish. When I was younger, I thought love was supposed to be this grand, loud declaration. But now I know it's the quietest moments that matter the most. It's the person who stays up with you, not to talk, but just to sit beside you while you're tired. It's the one who notices when your smile doesn't reach your eyes. It's not about saying, "I love you" all the time. It's about showing it in ways that words can't. Sometimes I ask myself, will I ever be ready to share my whole life with someone? Because marriage, it's not just a ceremony, it's a promise to see each other through every version of yourselves. And I'm not perfect. I have days when I get lost in my thoughts, when I disappear into my art, when I need space to breathe. So I don't need someone who completes me. I need someone who understands me. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that love doesn't rush. Love waits. And sometimes waiting isn't about time, it's about readiness. You can meet someone incredible, but if you're not ready to meet them as your true self, it's not going to work. I've met people who showed me glimpses of what love could be. Some stayed for a while, some left quietly, but each one taught me something important. about patience, kindness, vulnerability, and forgiveness. There was one person who told me, "You don't have to be interesting to be loved. You just have to be honest." And I'll never forget that. I think that's what scares most people. Not the idea of being alone, but the idea that when love finally arrives, it might not recognize them anymore. So we hide behind our work, our passions, our schedules, anything to fill the silence. But love doesn't live in noise, it lives in stillness. And I had to learn how to be still again. When I talk to my members about love, it's funny, each one sees it differently. Jungkook believes love is about growing together, not losing yourself for someone. Hobie says love should always feel light, even when life gets heavy. Namjoon once told me, "Real love feels like coming home after a long trip. It's not exciting, it's comforting." And Yoongi just smiled and said, "Love is peace, not chaos." I think about those words a lot because peace, that's what I'm after. The kind of love that doesn't make me question myself every day, the kind that feels safe. When you live your life under constant attention, it becomes easy for people to create versions of you that don't really exist. They fall in love with your photos, your performances, your image, but not the you that struggles to wake up, that overthinks, that worries about being enough. And that's why I want to marry someone who doesn't need V. I want her to fall in love with the man who sometimes forgets to reply to messages, who hums random melodies, who gets shy in small conversations. People often ask, "What kind of woman do you see yourself with?" And my answer is always the same: someone kind, someone real, someone who laughs easily, who loves animals, who feels comfortable in silence, someone who doesn't see love as a trophy but as a journey. I imagine us sitting somewhere quiet, no cameras, no expectations, maybe near the sea, maybe on a small balcony in the countryside. She'd be the kind of person who doesn't fill every moment with words. We talk when we have something to say and stay quiet when we don't. And somehow it would still feel complete. Because that's what I've realized: love doesn't need to be perfect to be right. It doesn't need to impress anyone, it just needs to be true. There's a quote I once read that said, "The right person will understand the parts of you that you've never explained." And I think that's what I'm waiting for. Not someone who changes me, but someone who helps me stay true to myself. So when I said I've already chosen the woman I'll marry, I wasn't talking about destiny. I was talking about alignment. I've already chosen the kind of soul I want to walk beside, the kind of life I want to build, the kind of peace I won't compromise for fame or convenience. I believe love will come when it's meant to. Not as a surprise, not as a storm, but as a sunrise you've been waiting for without realizing it. And when that day comes, I'll recognize her, not because she's perfect, but because when I look at her, I'll feel calm. The same kind of calm I feel when I play guitar late at night or when I watch the stars fade into morning. That's how I'll know. Because love, real love, doesn't rush in. It arrives quietly. It stays gently, and it never leaves the same way it came. Sometimes I think about what it means to fall in love when the world is already looking at you. It's strange how the same eyes that cheer for you can also make you afraid to feel. Every time I step on stage, I feel 1,000 emotions, but love, that's the one emotion I've learned to hide the most. I remember one night after a concert, the stadium was empty, and I sat alone where the fans had been just hours earlier. The lights were off, and the echoes of screams were still floating in the air. And I thought, if I ever fall in love, how could I keep it safe? Because fame is not a wall, it's a magnifying glass. It doesn't protect your feelings, it exposes them. Every smile, every look, every word becomes a story for someone else to interpret. And that's terrifying. There's a side of love that no one talks about, the part that exists in the quiet, away from the cameras. The kind of love you can't post or explain. The kind of love that's just yours. I crave that. I crave something untouched. There were days I used to think maybe love isn't meant for people like me. Because how do you separate what's real from what's just admiration? How do you know if someone loves you for the person you are, not for the dream you represent? It's hard, and that's why for a long time I avoided it. I poured everything into music, instead into melodies, lyrics, emotions I couldn't say out loud. It was safer that way, but the truth is, even music can't replace connection. You can't hug a song when you're tired. You can't share breakfast with applause. You can't lean on the spotlight when life gets heavy. So I started to look inward. I began to ask myself, what kind of love can survive this world I live in? And the answer came slowly through quiet lessons, through heartbreaks I never spoke about, through the people who showed me that being loved doesn't mean being owned. There was a time I thought love had to be perfect to be real, but perfection is exhausting. Now I know love that lasts isn't about grand gestures. It's about presence. It's about someone who stands beside you when the crowd disappears. Sometimes when I travel for work, there's this one moment I always notice. It's when the plane takes off and the city lights start to fade under the clouds. Everyone's looking out the window, lost in their thoughts. And in that stillness, I always imagine her, the woman I'll marry. Not because I'm searching, but because thinking of her feels peaceful. Like even if I don't know who she is yet, I already know the feeling she'll bring into my life. She'll probably be someone quiet, not shy but calm. Someone who doesn't need to fill every silence. She'll love small things, maybe coffee in the morning, sunsets, old records. And I think she'll see me not as a star, but as a man who's still learning, still growing, still healing. Sometimes people assume idols don't need love because we have fans, attention, success, but love and adoration are two different things. Adoration is loud, love is patient. Adoration fades when the lights go out. Love stays. And I want the kind that stays. Yoongi once told me that privacy is a form of self-respect. He said, the more precious something is, the less you should show it. That made me realize I don't want to flaunt love. I want to protect it. Because when something is real, it doesn't need to be proven. Nam Jun-hyung sees love like poetry, soft, incomplete, always evolving. He said, don't look for someone who understands every word. Find someone who understands your silence. That's what I want. Someone who doesn't need me to explain my heart all the time. She'll just feel it. Sometimes I imagine us in a quiet house, not a mansion, just a home. Maybe with a garden, maybe with a dog. She's reading by the window. I'm playing guitar in the corner. No cameras, no pressure, just peace. That's the dream I hold closest to my heart. And yes, I know people will talk, they'll speculate, they'll analyze every smile, every post, every lyric, but that's okay because when love is real, it doesn't need to fight for space in the spotlight. It simply exists. There was a time when I feared that being in love would mean losing myself. But now I see it differently. The right person won't take me away from who I am. She'll bring me back to it. When I think about marriage, I don't imagine a perfect ceremony. I imagine a promise to people who choose each other every day, even when life gets hard. Someone who'll sit with me in silence after a long day, who'll remind me to breathe when I overthink. Someone who doesn't need grand gestures to know she's loved. Because love, to me, is in the details, in the way she listens, in the way she says my name softly, not like a fan, but like someone who really knows it. In the way she doesn't ask me to be more or less than who I am. And maybe one day, when everything slows down, I look back and smile. Because even though I've lived a life full of noise, the thing I'll remember most is the quiet love I chose to protect. So, Army, when I say I've already chosen the woman I'll marry, what I really mean is I've already chosen the kind of love I'll protect from the world. A love that's sacred, peaceful, real. A love that doesn't need to be explained. A love that will still feel like home long after the music fades. There's something people often misunderstand about fame. They think that standing in front of millions of people means you're never lonely. But the truth is, the loneliest moments often come right after the loudest cheers. When I'm on stage, the energy feels infinite. Every smile, every voice, every light stick shining those moments are priceless. But when the curtain falls and I walk back to an empty dressing room, there's this sudden silence that fills the air. And in that silence, I hear everything I've been avoiding. The noise outside stops, and I'm left alone with my own thoughts. I've always been someone who feels deeply. Every word, every gesture, every goodbye, it stays with me longer than I admit. Sometimes that's a gift, sometimes it's heavy, because when you care too much, even small things can break you a little. I think that's why I became careful with love. Not cold, just careful. Because love for me isn't casual. It's sacred. It's not something I can share halfway. If I love completely. And in this world, that kind of love can be dangerous. There was a time I used to think that loneliness was something to escape. Now I see it differently. Loneliness isn't the absence of people, it's the absence of understanding. You can be surrounded by thousands and still feel unseen. And that's why when I imagine the woman I'll marry, I imagine someone who sees me, not as a performer, not as a celebrity, but as a person who sometimes doubts, sometimes feels lost, sometimes just wants to be quiet. Music has always been my language of love. When I can't say something directly, I write it or I sing it. And every time I perform a love song, I'm not just singing to someone else, I'm singing to the part of me that still believes in love even when it hurts. There are songs that never made it to the public melodies that live only in my notebooks. Some of them are happy, some are heartbreaks I never confessed, but all of them are honest. And maybe one day she'll hear them not because I release them, but because I'll play them for her in our living room just for us. You know, sometimes I envy people who can love freely without worrying about headlines. They can hold hands in public, walk together, laugh without being photographed. For me, love will always come with a shadow, a question, a rumor, an assumption. But even then, I wouldn't trade my truth for safety. Because hiding love is one thing, but denying it is another. And I've promised myself when love finds me, I'll protect it, but I won't lie about it. I remember one night talking with Namjoon Hyung after practice. He said, "You know, Tae, maybe love isn't supposed to be easy for us. Maybe the hard part is what makes it real." That line stuck with me because it reminded me that love isn't about convenience. It's about courage. The courage to stay, even when the world is watching. Sometimes I think about how I would introduce her if I ever do. Not to the world, but to my heart. It wouldn't be a grand announcement. No cameras, no script, just me saying, "I'm home." Because that's what she would be, home. Not a place, but a feeling. People often say, "Taehyung, you're romantic." Maybe I am. But romance, for me, isn't just flowers and confessions. It's in small gestures, the way someone listens, the way they understand your silence, the way they remember your favorite things without you reminding them. That's romance, that's love. When I was younger, I used to think love had to be loud to be true. Now I know it's the quiet ones that last. It's the kind of love that doesn't need to be posted, doesn't need validation. It's the kind that feels like breathing, natural, effortless, real. There are moments when I still feel the ache of loneliness. It comes unexpectedly, sometimes in the middle of a busy day, sometimes right before I fall asleep. But I've stopped seeing it as sadness. It's just a reminder that I have space in my heart that's still waiting to be shared. Maybe that's why I write so much, because through words, I can reach people who feel the same. And maybe somewhere out there, the woman who's meant for me is listening too. Maybe she hears my songs and understands the parts of me I've never spoken. Maybe she feels my sincerity through every note, every pause, every breath. When that day comes, when our paths finally meet, I won't need to ask her to understand. She'll just know. She'll look at me and see not the artist, but the human beneath it all. And I'll finally be able to say, "This is what I was waiting for." Because love, real love, doesn't need to be found in the spotlight. It grows in the quiet corners of life. It blooms where there's trust. It heals where there's patience. And it thrives when it's protected, not displayed. So, yes, Army, when I say I've already chosen the woman I'll marry, I don't mean her name or her face. I mean, I've chosen the kind of love that will meet me where I am, behind the lights, beyond the fame, beneath the noise. I've chosen to believe in love that feels like rest. Love that makes me brave enough to be soft again. Because at the end of it all, when the music fades and the lights go dark, that's the kind of love I want beside me. The kind that doesn't need an audience to be real. The kind that's enough, even in silence. There's something beautiful about how love and art always find each other in my life. Even when I'm not consciously thinking about it, love somehow becomes the soul of every song I write. Because for me, music isn't about perfection, it's about feeling. And love, in all its forms, longing, waiting, heartbreak, hope, gives those feelings meaning. When I write, I don't start with chords or lyrics, I start with emotion. a quiet memory, a moment that never left me, a face I still remember. It doesn't matter if she was real or imagine the emotion is real. Sometimes I think my future wife already lives in those melodies long before I meet her. Like every song I've written was a letter sent ahead of time, waiting for her to find it. People often ask me, Taehyung, where do you get your inspiration from? And I always smile because how do you explain that your muse isn't a person but a feeling you've been chasing for years? A feeling that makes your heart slow down and your world make sense again. That's what I think love truly is. Not a fantasy, not an escape, but a return. A return to the truest version of yourself. I've seen what love can do to people. It can heal, but it can also hurt deeply. And I've learned that pain doesn't mean love has failed, it just means it was real. Because only something real can leave a mark that deep. I've loved before quietly, privately. Not every love story needs to be told. Some are meant to stay unspoken, to be remembered only through the things they inspired. A song, a painting, a photograph, little pieces of emotion captured in time. And sometimes those silent loves are the ones that teach you the most. They teach you patience. They teach you how to care without control, how to let go with grace. They teach you that love isn't about possession, it's about presence, about showing up, even when it's difficult. And maybe that's why I always said when I fall in love again, I want it to be with someone who understands the quiet moments, someone who isn't afraid of silence. Because real connection doesn't always need words. Sometimes a look is enough. You know, there's something sacred about falling in love as an artist because you start to see the person not just with your eyes but through your soul. Every gesture becomes poetry. Every smile becomes music. Every shared silence becomes a verse. It's not about idolizing someone, it's about being moved by their existence, just the way they are. When I imagine the woman I'll spend my life with, she's not perfect. She doesn't have to be. Perfection is boring. What matters is warmth, the kind that feels like home. Someone who listens not because she wants to reply, but because she wants to understand. Someone who doesn't need me to be Taehyung from BTS, but just Tae, the man who loves deeply, laughs easily, and sometimes needs a shoulder when the world feels heavy. There's a quote I once read: the right person doesn't complete you, they remind you that you were already whole. That line changed how I see love. Because I don't want someone to fix me or fill my emptiness. I want someone who walks beside me, who shares both silence and laughter, who sees my flaws and still chooses to stay. My mother used to tell me, when you love, don't rush. The heart knows its time. And she's right. Every meaningful thing in my life came when I stopped chasing it. Music, friendship, even peace, they came naturally when I was ready. So maybe love will be the same. Maybe one day, when I least expect it, I'll turn around and she'll be there. Not with fireworks, but with calm. And in that moment, I'll know, it's her. Sometimes, when I watch fans react to my songs about love, I realize something. Every person in that crowd is carrying their own story, their own ache, their own hope. Maybe that's why I feel connected to ARMY in such a deep way. Because through music, we share emotions we can't always say out loud. And maybe that's love too, not romantic, but universal. A connection that transcends distance, language, and fame. I once told myself that I'd never let fame decide who I can or can't love. Because love to me is sacred, not something that should be controlled by the outside world. If I ever find her, I'll protect her not by hiding her, but by keeping what we have genuine. I'll make sure she knows she's loved for who she is, not for who I am. Because in the end, love isn't about matching status or image. It's about matching souls. You know, I've seen so many relationships built on attention and just as easily destroyed by it. That's why I want mine to be built on peace. No need to prove, no need to perform. Just trust, just warmth, just truth. Maybe that's why when I said my heart has already chosen my future wife, people misunderstood. They thought I was talking about someone specific, but what I meant was I've already chosen the kind of love I want, the kind that's patient, grounded, and real, the kind that doesn't fade when the spotlight turns off. Because when I close my eyes and picture my future, I don't see stages or cameras. I say a quiet home, a cup of tea on the table, a guitar leaning against the wall, and someone humming along while I play. Simple, honest, peaceful. That's the dream. Not the fame, not the noise, but that stillness, that warmth that says, you can rest now. You're loved not for what you do, but for who you are. And when that moment comes, I think I'll finally understand what all my songs were trying to say. That love was never something I had to search for. It was something I was always becoming through every melody, every story, every scar. So when I tell ARMY that my heart has chosen, it's not a secret I'm hiding. It's a promise I'm keeping. A promise to love with truth, to protect what's real, and to never lose myself in the noise again. Because love, real love, doesn't just change your life, it changes the way you see the world. It reminds you that even in loneliness, there's meaning. Even in silence, there's music. And even in waiting, there's love. That's why even when that day comes, I'll never stop being grateful. BTS will always be part of me. You will always be part of me. And love, whether it's the love of music, of people, or of one special person, will always be what connects us. There's a quote I keep in my journal. Love doesn't end when the song fades, it just changes its rhythm. Maybe that's what life is, a series of melodies that evolve with time. The tempo slows, the lyrics deepen, but the feeling stays the same. And as long as my heart beats, I'll keep creating, loving, and sharing those feelings with you. So, to ARMY, this is my promise. No matter what happens in my personal life, my heart will always have a space for you. Because you've given me more than support, you've given me the courage to be honest, to love, to live fully. When I sing for all of us, for every person who has ever loved and been loved, who has ever lost and found themselves again. Love isn't a destination, it's a journey, and I'm still walking it one step, one song, one heartbeat at a time. When I finally meet the woman I'll marry, I won't say, "You're my world." I'll say, "Let's build a world together." Because that's what true love does. It doesn't complete you, it expands you. It makes you see the beauty in everything, even in imperfection. And when that day comes, I'll look at her, smile, and whisper the same words I want you, ARMY, to remember. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for believing. My heart has already chosen and it will always choose love. Because love isn't just about two people, it's about everyone who helped shape you into the person capable of it. And for me, that includes every single one of you. So, this is not the end of my story, it's just a new chapter, one filled with gratitude, peace, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that love in all its forms will always lead me home.